Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Common Censored. I'm Lee Camp, joined by Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello, hello.
This is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
Sometimes other stuff.
And this would be a week for other stuff. Well, no, partially. Partially.
Last week was a stuff. Wait, hold on. That sentence doesn't know what it wants to be
Last
yet.
week was a stuff. It totally was.
Last week was a stuff for other week. That's what I wanted to say.
Oh, okay, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start off with other stuff, but then we're going to get into some of the news of the week and the month and what the fuck's been going on. But I wanted, and I had to insist on this because Eleanor is terrible at self-promotion and is too humble. But I insisted on the first chunk of the show here to be discussing the new album that is finally here, called No Solo. I think all of you know, if you're a listener to the podcast, you know Eleanor, amazing musician. The opening song is by Rooftop Revolutionaries. And now is her first solo EP. It's got 3 new songs on it, 2 spoken word pieces, and it's called No Solo, which sounds, that title does not sound like it fits.
I know. I actually wrote about it because I felt like it was almost sounding like one of those people that has like a gallery opening and there's a bunch of shit on the walls, like a hand towel. Like a shredded hand towel, and then there's somebody with like a lopsided haircut that's staring at it and being like, I just don't think you get it. It's like, no, I don't. It's a hand towel.
And then it turns out one of the workers just left their hand towel in there while they were working. Yeah.
Okay, this is a bit of a tangent, but I think it was like at the MoMA or something, but somebody dropped their glasses on the floor and people were looking at it like it was a piece of art. And I was like, see, this is the problem I have with modern art.
There's a dozen people crowded around it. Everyone's silently looking at the glasses on the floor.
And this actually happened to me at the Phillips Gallery here in DC. There's like a dehumidifier. Like it's this little contraption that they had on the floor to make sure that the air is appropriate for the artworks. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. What's that? And the guard's like, that's a dehumidifier. And I'm like, how many times a day do you have to answer that question?
Probably endlessly. There's probably an endless line of people walking up and going, whoa, this blows my mind.
It's a commentary on modern technology.
See, now I actually could appreciate people standing around and staring at like something that's not actually meant to be art if it's just happening in the real world. So,
right.
A 3-legged dog or... no, actually, my brother had a 3-legged dog. She was lovely, but
sounds like the beginning of a joke.
But for another example, I saw a guy the other day, and I've been meaning to tell you about this. It's amazing, it's slipped my mind, but he was sprinting with a baby stroller, but then he slowed down, and then he fire hose pissed on some bushes as he kept walking.
Shut up.
Then stopped and ran a little and then did it again and then ran a little.
You're lying.
I'm not kidding. And
Out in the middle of everything?
Basically, yeah. Like right over here in the road. Like on the sidewalk. And I think he must have thought that sprinting with the stroller would make people not pay attention to the fact that he was pissing all over the place. But anyway, so if there was a gaggle of people standing around him, kind of like, wow, this is some modern art, I think that would be appropriate.
I don't really have a response to that. Also, although I will say this, I've heard that it's not good to sprint with a baby stroller because they can't take in the sensory information fast enough, so it's just a blur. So you should really walk with it.
Also, when you're pissing in their face, that's another thing they have trouble taking in.
Well, I think that becomes, borderline indecent exposure. But, just, yes, you shouldn't piss on your kids. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that. But
I didn't know this is where this intro would go. But let's go back to the album for a bit.
Which is totally free of piss.
Why is it? Oh, I've always wanted to ask you this question. Why an album?
Oh, God.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, can we just make a note to all the people who might interview someone at some point in their lives? Don't ask why that medium, okay? Unless it's something totally bizarre, like literally they're painting with their own blood. Like, just don't ask why.
Well,
So, like, people would ask me, like, why did you make a movie? I'm like, why the fuck not? I don't know. Like, why are you asking that question?
to me, it feels like, because I did get why a book once when I was doing interviews for my book, and to me, it's people who, it's the same as asking, why are you having me talk about this? Because I haven't read nor looked
Right.
at anything you've given me. I only half know who you are. Why is this happening?
I have not opened it.
To me, that question is the same.
It totally is.
But I do think I am allowed to ask, why is the title No Solo?
Yes, that is a legit question. And no, I'm not trying to be the guy with the lopsided hair at the art gallery. I named it that for a few reasons. One is that as an artist, I don't exist in a vacuum. I didn't come up with the ideas for these songs, like, you know, out of whole cloth. Like, I am inspired continuously, not just by the things that I've listened to my whole life, but by the people I interact with. The title track, or not the title track, the first track on the EP is called Outlaw, and I was inspired by it because of the work that I was helping with and that I was seeing to stop the Bayou Bridge pipeline down in Louisiana and in Pennsylvania to stop the Mariner East pipeline up there. And so to suggest that it's solo in terms of where these songs came from, or the spoken word pieces, would just be a lie. The second reason is that the production of this EP was not done by myself. I mean, yes, it was weird to sit there by myself in the studio recording, because previously I'd recorded like with a band live. And so it's weird to be that by yourself. But, without the production support of, in particular, Rich Mauser, who's like this brilliant, nutty professor of music and sound, and just has like the coolest toys at his studio in California, this album wouldn't exist. Like, if I just tried to do it at home on Pro Tools or something. And the musical support in terms of the musicianship and like the extra instruments that I can't play, like pedal steel. So that is also why it's called No Solo. And thirdly, it's a fuck you to the people who are like, why do you have guitar solos? That's so old. That's so passé. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. And then finally, it's a larger commentary on how, like, on our work. We sometimes feel so much despair and we feel so isolated from reality because we're clashing with reality. Our dreams for the future clash with the horrors of the present, and that can feel very isolating. But we're not alone in that. We are manifold in that. And the gaslighting from the government and, from the propagandized masses of people can make us feel very isolated as well. And like, oh my God, am I crazy because I think housing is a human right?
Right.
But we're not alone, right? And we are, so many people who believe in building a better future that's based on justice and liberation. And so it's also a reminder there that, although we can feel alone, out on the street or, in a studio or, doing community organizing, knocking on doors by ourselves, we are actually not alone. And actually the cover art design that was done by Joan Fury was inspired by that same idea, the idea of somebody being on the front lines and they seem to be alone, but behind them and within them are so many people, so many voices, so many emotions, and so many years and decades and, lifetimes of that fight and build. So it's a reminder to, that we're not solo.
Well, it's an incredibly beautiful album. The spoken word also, I feel like, comes alive in a new way on that album.
Thanks.
Like I said, there's 3 songs and 2 spoken word, right? And people can get it at artkillingapathy.com. You'll scroll down, you can see it there. I mean, the lyrics are beautiful and political and impressive. Do you feel like this album is more political than your past music, less political, equally?
I'd say it's more overt, I guess. I think one of the things that is different in this album is that I did miss some of the collaboration that a band brings, but I also didn't have to like step back from because, to be perfectly honest, like Rooftop Revolutionaries, I was the only one who was as political as I am, and that's might sound surprising, but it was also tough,
right?
Because I had to like constantly convince people that like, no, this is how we're gonna do this, and these are the lyrics. Granted, let's be honest, a lot of the band members didn't even fucking listen to the lyrics. They were like, whatever, I'm just playing this, this bass line. So it was nice to not have to be concerned that someone would be like, I don't know, I don't think that we should actually suggest that being an outlaw is an important thing to do at this juncture. And, I don't think that we should talk about the world being on fire or hell, I don't think we should have spoken word pieces on the album. That's fucking weird. Like, I didn't have to. I realized that like while the band gave me so much, it also hamstrung me a little bit, and that was an experience that I could only have had by doing this solo album. So like this solo album is kind of like me working through some shit and unpacking some shit at the same time as just.
It sounds kind of similar to me with my stand up. Obviously, you're not really working with anybody in stand up comedy, but when I was in New York, and I wouldn't take away those years at all, because I needed to learn how to be a really good comedian before I could deal with tough issues and make them funny. But it was like there was a certain percentage of what I was doing that had to be pulled back a little bit to deal with the fact that I was performing in front of half-drunk crowds in New York. I mean, half of them didn't even know of the topics I'm talking about, much less want to hear about them. So then getting on Redacted Tonight, it was like, oh, I can swing for the fences now.
Right.
Like everybody who's tuning into this wants to hear about what is going on in America, and the depths of our, the morass we've put ourselves in with this garbage neoliberalism. But you're in front of a comedy club, and even if I want to be political, which I did plenty of very political stuff, but it was like, I couldn't, say the word neoliberal and everybody just blinks wildly at you.
I do remember this one. Oh, it was like must have been 2016, but like mid-year or something before the election. You were asked to be a part of some event where people were, gathering. I don't know what the fuck it was for actually, but they had, a couple of comedians.
Video Awards? Was that it?
I would have remembered that. They had like a couple of comedians, but one of the guys was just like dressed as Trump and did like this weird Trump impersonation.
Oh, it was at the famed synagogue. Is it called Sixth and I Synagogue or something?
I don't know.
I think it's Sixth and I, but even though it's a synagogue, it's not it would have these great performances that are not religious in any way.
Right.
So they didn't say, oh, you've got to be an Orthodox Jew to be here. It was like, and I don't remember, the booker really liked my stuff. Now, I just barely started Redacted, so I think it was mainly based on my stand-up or maybe my Moment of Clarity videos. But yeah, so they had me, and Trump was running for office, and Hillary was running, and they had a Trump impersonator who was doing just kind of super hacky, like Trump, I have orange skin jokes.
And it was clear that like people there were pro Hillary. It wasn't just that it was like anti-Trump. It was like, we have to support Hillary. And then you come on and it's like, I fucking hate Hillary. And
Well, I just went after both sides. I
Right.
didn't even, my stuff has never spent that long on like Hillary Clinton herself. I spend it on the system as a
Right.
whole, and besides, she wasn't the last president before Trump. It was Obama. So I spent it more on like what Obama did wrong. But anyway, that didn't matter. The fact that I said, listen, fuck this system, fuck a system that does A, B, and C to us. It was like I started off I think I started off with a couple of of slightly easier jokes and then a few lines about fuck both parties got some laughs because people are like, oh well, yeah, I guess that's true. And then as I went deeper and deeper, it was just like the laugh slowly petered out to nothing. And I think I was like supposed to do 20 minutes, and eventually like 8 minutes in, I had 12 minutes of silence remaining as I continued to do my act. And also, when I'm in those situations, I mean, luckily it hasn't happened that much because people know what they're booking now when they book me. But when I am in those situations, I have a tendency to be like, in my head, be like, fuck you, I'm actually going to go harder.
Yeah.
and so I tend to, I change my set as I'm going to pick the stuff that I know they're going to dislike even more.
Yeah.
So,
like, I'm going to double down.
Yeah.
No, it was great. I was there with a friend of mine, and we were laughing, and people were around us were looking, and I was like, this is great shit. I don't know what your problem is, you fucking neoliberal.
And then I was like, so let's bring back the goofy guy acting like Trump again.
Right. Yeah. The dick jokes are coming, folks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm incredibly excited for this album. I think it's excellent. And I think everyone should check it out. It's at artkillingapathy.com, and it's pay what you can starting at $6. So, whatever you believe you'd like to put in, it would be incredible to support the album and everything. And so you go to artkillingapathy.com and you scroll down just slightly, and you'll see it says no solo. It's got a picture of perhaps a boy running. It's interpret it how you will.
Yes, interpret it how you will.
But also you can get it on our, you can find the link on our Twitters and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
All right, so let's continue to move on. I only want to spend a minute on this first topic because even though I covered it on a live stream, so some might be hearing a bit of a repeat here, I just want to mention it because it is so horrific that it must be mentioned. Yesterday was Press Freedom Day, International Press Freedom Day, and Biden put out a statement about how much we need to defend a free and open press and how, the democracies are cracking down on press freedom around the world and all this shit. And you're like, dude, it's fucking you. It is you. It's the neoliberals. It's this fucking garbage government. You are the ones literally right now, as we speak, cracking down on a free and open media, independent media. You're telling YouTube to make sure people aren't watching our stuff. Like, you are part of the system that has made sure that only corporate talking points are allowed. And at the same time, you have perhaps the most famous journalist in prison right now due to your fucking garbage moral bankruptcy. Julian Assange continues to be locked up 9 years in confinement, and it is thanks to Biden and Obama and Trump and our government.
Yeah, no, it's the classic trope of propaganda is what the other people do. The U.S. is just this moral high ground, the city upon a hill that believes in press freedom and the First Amendment and all that shit. Meanwhile, I mean, there have been so many instances, like just in the past months, where, less than lethal, rubber bullets, tear gas canisters and shit like that have been fired at press. On purpose. Like, they've got the fucking helmets and the jackets that say press. Press have been detained. They've had their belongings.
There's video of cops saying get arrested press.
They've been subject to illegal searches just because they are press. I've been at pipeline protests where literally cops have said to me, I'm going to break your fucking camera if you keep taking pictures. Like, woohoo, press freedom. This is so, and if you look at the list of, safest nations for journalists, the U.S. keeps butt scooting down that list. Okay. So the idea that somehow the U.S. is this pinnacle of press freedom or really any kind of freedom is fucking laughable. And it also speaks to the distinction between journalism and then whatever fucking corporate media does, because if you've ever been to a protest, you'll notice that there's oftentimes if it's big enough, then CNN and shit will show up, and they have oftentimes they'll have like police protection. Like the police will be
Yep.
around them,
Yep.
making sure that they have what they need. Meanwhile, journalists that work for, other outlets, like myself, will just be like beat and have shit thrown at us. Will be pushed, stun grenades and shit thrown in our direction. Like it is.
There was a great video of Don Lemon of CNN telling the cops to arrest independent journalists. Like he was pointing to them and going, "These people are claiming to be journalists and they're not." Like, and you're like, "No, they are." And in fact,
You're
they're
not.
more journalists than you because you are just doing corporate garbage.
Yeah. So, but this is, it would be like, Goebbels protecting his own. Like the state is protecting its propaganda machine. Goebbels did the propaganda for the Nazi Germany. But like, so corporate media is protected, and those few times where like they end up being in the fray, like I think last summer this was something that happened, like a CNN journalist got like hit in the head with something or.
Well, and there was another video of a CNN journalist where they knew, it was one of the few times I've ever seen this, they knew they were arresting a CNN guy and they went ahead and did it anyway.
Right.
And the cop said something like, "I'm sorry about this, but I was told we needed to arrest you," or something like that. And they ended up letting him out like an hour later or whatever with a full apology, with like the police chief apologizing and all this shit.
And meanwhile, there were other, journalists like still in jail, and they're like, "Well, we don't care about you. It's just, CNN."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's purely based on who you support. Like I think it's your line. Like if you're the stenographer for the State Department, then you're not going to be, your press freedom is pretty safe. But of course, the whole point of press freedom is that you can be an adversarial press. But if you can't be adversarial, then there's no such thing as press freedom.
Oh, yeah. And he had, in Biden's garbage statement, he had things like the press is important to hold those in power accountable. And, oh, God, it's so right. If people want to hear me actually go through the whole statement, that's on the live stream. You can get it at youtube.com/moment of clarity. But one other thing, which I did mention on the live stream as well, is we also support and fund and arm the Israeli military that literally shoots and kills press. Like during the Great March of Return, they knew they were shooting at people, unarmed people, with the word press across their chest and press across their helmet, and they shoot them anyway, and they killed several. So we are supporting that. And of course, despite a bunch of hand wringing and some, fist shaking and pearl clutching, we continue to support Saudi Arabia after they executed and dismembered and then likely burnt in a barbecue grill the body of Jamal Khashoggi, who was a Washington Post writer.
Yeah, and even like after that, there were some mutterings like, "Oh, I can't believe that they did this," but then it kind of like passed, and we were like, "Oh, okay, now what are the Kardashians wearing?" And
the only reason they were that upset, that our system was that upset, was because he worked for the elite press, the corporate press, the mainstream press. That's when they get upset. Yet still not upset enough to stop, selling billions of dollars of weapons to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, no, it's grotesque. I really don't understand how you watch those speeches. Like, there aren't enough stress balls on the fucking planet for me to.
I read the statement rather than watching it because I couldn't handle hearing Joe Biden say things.
My tolerance for like hearing the voices of these people is possibly at an all-time low.
Well, it's funny because yours is only slightly lower than mine. Like I never turn on. There's other people that watch like MSNBC endlessly in order to attack it and reveal what garbage they are and everything. What a dumpster fire they are. I can't. I'll watch like 3 minutes. I did one segment on that Greg Gutfeld Fox News show, and even for that, I watched like 10 minutes of one episode and just tore apart that 10 minutes because watching more than that is so angering, and you just feel sick for like humanity and everything. It's just awful.
Yeah. I think it's so important that people do that people like watch the actual source and then debunk it point by point so that people can follow along. God bless you, because I can't fucking I don't even think like I don't think my hand would let me like touch the remote if it knew that I was going to MSNBC or like I think I'd actually like have a seizure. Like,
I mean, there'd definitely be some various bricks of various sizes through your TV screen. Okay, so
All right.
let's move on to some pipeline news.
At the cross street of systemic racism and ecocide.
Oh, I love that cross street. I hang out there all the time. You know, they have a great little sandwich shop.
I bet they do. Okay, so this is a story again that's at that intersection, and it comes from Tennessee, where basically the a pipeline is telling these black landowners outside of Memphis that you have to sell the rights to your land or get sued. So this is I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Byhalia or Byhalia Pipeline, which is a joint venture of Valero and Plains All American Pipeline, that have been trying to gain control of various land properties in these, guess what, majority black neighborhoods in Southwest Memphis. And not surprisingly, the fallout, literally, of putting a pipeline in this area is incredibly detrimental, not just to the community itself, but of course, once again, to the ecosystem. There's an aquifer that is basically the city's public water source that's the size of Lake Michigan, which I don't actually know like the exact dimensions of Lake Michigan, but let's just say it's fucking big, okay? Because I know that you look out at it and it looks like an ocean because you can't see the other side.
It's quite large.
Yeah.
Those are the biggest lakes in the world. So.
Hence the name. They're not actually, the biggest lake in the world is Lake Titicaca. And you'll remember that because of the name.
I had heard that, yeah.
You'll never forget that. You're welcome.
I mean, the size of the Titicacas on that one.
Okay. All right. So again, like this is something that we've heard before, right? Like we saw this with the Dakota Access Pipeline. It was going to go through a predominantly white neighborhood. And then they were like, no, that's unacceptable. And they're like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. We'll put it through Indian country because who the fuck cares?
Right. They don't have any political power. They won't be able to stop us. Yeah.
So the basic situation that these folks are in is, the company goes to them and says, we'd like to buy your property. And if they say no, the company is using eminent domain. And this is, it's a power that was put into practice, beginning in terms of like building the highway system in the U.S. The idea that we have to have these infrastructure projects that serve the common good, in order to address the needs of the population. But eminent domain has been used, and I'm not saying that every highway project is a great idea, but I'm saying that in some instances, hey, we need to connect this town to the rest of, the world. We got to build like train tracks here or whatever. It can be a good thing, particularly if and when, which is clearly not always the case, a fair price is paid and there's an option for this family to move to a place that would actually end up being better for them because it won't be like right next to a train track or what have you. But eminent domain,
particularly if it's not built by borderline slaves.
Right.
That's always good.
Well, that's also, yeah. There again, like with anything, there's layers of shades. But so eminent domain has been used by the oil and gas industry for more than 100 years. That states have allowed energy companies to use it to basically steal land for their projects.
You get into some of this in your documentary.
I do. I talk about the theft of land for resource colony purposes, and that film, if you haven't seen it, is over at hardroadofhope.com. Thank you.
Well done.
See, I'm trying.
Yeah,
I'm trying.
I'm impressed.
No restrictions apply.
It's won like 13 awards.
Batteries not included. So yeah. So the. First of all, I just like to go ahead and say that eminent domain and the entire, Constitution and the amendments are fucking old and need to be redone. Eminent domain was written in a time when people were still trotting around in horse and buggies. So, and I'm not just talking about the Amish. I mean, like people in general. And so this shit needs to be rewritten, understanding the situation that we're in, particularly with regards to climate chaos. The idea that fossil fuel companies can use eminent domain to steal land under the guise of providing a public good is fucking horrifying. But that's what they're doing, and not just in this instance, but this is the instance that we're talking about right now. That basically, they're using this to evict people so that they can build a pipeline that could potentially poison an entire city's fucking water supply. Like, how is that common good?
Well, and you gotta, like, you look at the kind of bullshit that's spit out by the federal government, and they're like, oh, we need to get to, beyond fossil fuels. We're going to decrease emissions this much by 2035 and 2050 and blah, blah, blah. But we're going to keep supporting oil and gas as they sue or, otherwise attack landowners to make sure that more oil and gas and fracking can happen. It's like you can't have both. Either you're trying to decrease emissions or you're helping oil and gas destroy people's lives. You get one or the other.
Right. And an important thing that I should have noted with regards to eminent domain use, it's been used particularly against Black communities under the guise of quote unquote urban renewal, where entire Black neighborhoods have been bulldozed when they didn't need to be. So eminent domain has not, it's not like it was used kindly to build highways. It has been used in of course, because the system is racist. So it's going to be used in a racist context. And so this is just a continuation of that, of that history. And Justin J. Pearson, who's the co-founder of Memphis Community Against the Pipeline, told The Guardian, quote, "We have to have a broader conversation nationally and internationally about how much power we're granting corporations to exploit communities, particularly Black communities, Indigenous communities, and other communities of color." And so again, like, I think this is a very powerful moment to recognize the intersections of the corporate the corporate control, the climate chaos, systemic racism, like all of these things intersect, public health. And it's so important that we, and I know I talk about this a lot, but fucking broken record here. But like, it's so important that
I think you're a record that's working just right.
Thanks. We have to talk about these issues like they're not existing in a vacuum. Like the fact that these Black communities are in this place of being, on the front lines of a dirty energy project that's threatening their groundwater. Like, this is something that intersects so many different issues and really cuts to the core of, a white supremacist capitalist nation. And it's so important that we recognize it as such.
Yeah, and this is something I said on Redacted before. I can't remember which topic I was on for that, but it's not that, so for example, obviously a lot of white people are having their land destroyed by these pipelines and everything else as well. So my point is that it's not that everything has racism as its, initial catalyst or at its core, but everything also has racism involved in it when you live in a systemic racism system. So many things do have racism at their core, but many things just have also racism, like racism tacked on. So for example, I think I was talking about the funding gap in schools that are predominantly Black versus predominantly white, and there's a multi-billion-dollar funding gap. And it's not that comes initially from racism. That comes initially probably from we're going to put more money into the rich area schools than into the poor area schools, because guess what? The rich area schools have a tendency to have the kids who are going to run society, the oligarchs' kids. Those people then go to their government or are the government, and they're going to get the state government, city government, the federal government. They're going to get more grants and things to the schools that have the richer kids. Mm-hmm. But then a secondary problem is, well, who are the majority poor in many cities, many areas? Well, it's majority people of color. Why? Because we live in systemic racism. So it's not that funding gap was created because someone's sitting in a boardroom going, let's pay less to the black schools. At least not anymore. But instead, it is that racism is a part of a problem that was already there. So my point is just that not every problem has racism at its core, but every problem also has racism. So.
Yeah, well put. Something to look out for on May 14th. There's a circuit court judge that will hear oral arguments from the pipeline company and opponents to determine whether whether any crude oil pipeline developer, including this one, has the right to exercise the power of eminent domain under Tennessee law. So this is pretty huge. Also, an important thing to note that this pipeline would connect Oklahoma to the Gulf Coast. So it's a very important kind of connection to facilitate the flow of crude oil at a time when, I don't know if y'all remember, but the climate change thing is still a thing. So
it's amazing we're still putting in fucking pipelines.
And putting in pipelines that connect on such a massive scale that could easily just dump into the Gulf again.
I mean, we already know that we're dying, that this planet is dying, that our ability to survive is dying. We already know that. And we're not just too slow to phase out fossil fuels, which is what we're doing slowly. We're literally putting in new pipelines.
Yeah, so...
I mean, not me. I haven't put any in, but still.
We're innocent. And an important thing to note, just in case, people listening to this show didn't already know how we felt about Biden, it is possible to push back on this on the federal level, but... The administration signaled that it may continue to support pipeline projects. For instance, the Guardian reports that the administration filed a brief for an upcoming Supreme Court case that expresses support for the $1.2 billion Penn East Pipeline Co., using eminent domain to take 42 parcels of land along the route. On April 9th, the Biden administration also allowed the $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline to operate without a federal permit, allowing the pipeline to pass under Lake Oahe. And y'all might have heard about that and the continued push to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline, considering that it's not only incredibly fucking destructive, it's also now illegal because it's operating without a permit. But Biden just went ahead and, rubber stamped that shit. So... it's important to recognize that we do not have friends in high places when it comes to these projects.
But everything I've seen in liberal media says that Biden is amazing on climate change.
He is the climate change president because
climate change president, exactly.
Yeah, and this goes back to a point
they wouldn't lie to us with it.
that I've made before, which is, isn't it more fucking infuriating and psychopathic to believe that something the metaphor I use is it's like there's a serial killer in your house, right, that's trying to kill you. And the Republicans are like, no, there isn't, so I'm just going to eat pizza and drink beer and fuck it. And the Democrats are like, no, there totally is a serial killer in the house. I'm going to eat pizza and drink beer. And it's like, which reaction is more fucking psychotic? Obviously, the person who's like, oh yeah, I'm about to die, and just continues to not give a shit. That is way more concerning than the person who just doesn't believe it's happening.
True. Yeah.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
That'd be the best TED Talk ever. All right, some quick notes before we get to the next topic. As we mentioned, the new album, the EP, is at artkillingapathy.com. A note I forgot to say earlier for LiberaPay members, for those of you who are members of this show, liberapay.com/LeeCamp. One of the tiers, anything above $3, I believe, it says that you get the download of Eleanor's album. no solo. However, because it is anonymous, that means we don't actually have your emails to just email you out of the blue and say, here's the album. So if you are one of those members, you have to email us, commoncensored@protonmail.com. Just email us. Tell us you'd like to collect your album since we don't have your email address. So just let us know. That's for anyone who's over $3 at liberapay.com/Lee Camp. And it'd be great if others want to go over there and sign up and support the show. We're almost getting kind of close to our goal, which would cover the cost of the show each week. And let's see, we're also doing another live stream this next Sunday at 8 p.m. And that will be, 8 p.m. Sunday at youtube.com/momentofclarity. And what else do I got here? Eleanor's Movies at hardroadofhope.com. It's also at artkillingapathy.com. And you can email us again at commoncensored@protonmail.com if you have questions, concerns, comments, anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So
let's keep it rolling.
I actually have some potentially good news. So, strap in, y'all.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know if we allow that on this show. Do we allow good news?
Hey, are you saying that my EP's bad news?
Oh, no. The EP was good news. I'm excited about that.
Cool. So, I paid him to say that. So this news comes from late April. California, which has been pummeled by droughts consecutively, basically like for the past, I'd say at least the past decade, more than that, like 15, even 20 years. I mean, I lived there for 10 years between 2005 and 2015, and I saw all the shit that was like, oh, make sure that you shower less, and
oh my god, I know people have already heard me cover this, but that drives me fucking nuts. Considering one hamburger is the equivalent of showering for a month. And they're like, you need to share your showers with others. Just find people in the neighborhood. Just grab someone off the sidewalk and say, come shower with me, because that's how we're going to save the planet. And not once do they say, don't eat a fucking burger.
Or, yes, eat fewer burgers, but also, like, don't let a giant fucking corporation siphon all your water. So Nestle, which, is famous for siphoning water from, like, incredibly either drought-stricken or, marginalized areas. For instance, like, not that far outside of Flint, Michigan, Nestle was basically siphoning fresh water.
And they had paid...
selling it back to people.
They had paid Flint, or whatever city was a few miles outside of Flint, they had paid them $200 a year for the right to steal millions of gallons of fresh water. And I think Nestle is still, although apparently they're looking to sell off their water brands, but Nestle, I think, is still the owner of the most fresh water in the world.
Yeah, well, and this is...
Which is like saying you own someone's thoughts. Like, you shouldn't even be able to own water.
No, I know. It's creepy as fuck. So, California water officials, which that sounds cool. I didn't realize that they were specific water officials, but there should be.
Well, they're made out of water? I guess we're all made out of water.
We
it's
are.
Like 90% or something.
I don't think it's 90.
It's a lot.
It's not 90. I think 90 would be awfully squishy.
I mean, I'm awfully squishy.
I mean, so am I, but I also had a cookie for breakfast, so, They have moved to stop Nestle from siphoning millions of gallons of water out of
60%.
Yeah, that's significant.
I was close.
Dude,
close.
90% water, you'd be moving like those seals. Like, you'd have to, like, you wouldn't be able to walk upright. Anywho, you've derailed. So the San Bernardino forest is where Nestle siphons this water from. And so apparently Nestle has had water rights in California since 1865.
We weren't even hominids by then. We weren't even humanoids or hominids by then. We were still fucking apes. You can't sign a deal in the 1800s. We didn't know how to hold a pen with our weird claws back then. Come on. It's ridiculous.
So back when people were still like building houses out of
beetle dung or
beetle
whatever.
dung and firing muskets with beetle dung.
It was a pretty beetle dung based society. I mean, most of the society was beetle dung based.
Please don't like take this to your history class and be like, I heard.
The human body is 90% water, and everybody lives on beetle dung.
And there were still Neanderthals in 1865.
Neanderthals.
Okay, no, stop
Yes.
it. Stop it.
Sorry.
You stop it.
I'm right.
You stop it. So I feel like at some point there should have been like a contract renegotiation. Like, I don't know. Like, I have to do that with my landlord like every year.
You mean with the water?
Yeah. And meanwhile, Nestle has just held on to this since 1865
Right.
and it's equal to.
So are they still paying like a buffalo penny a year? What are they paying?
They actually do a barter system.
Do they?
So
they,
it's
they owe like one of those big coins, just glink. They just flick it over. Here it is, blook.
It's 5 raccoon tails. So yeah, it's
They're paying in beaver pelts, 6 beaver pelts, and they get the water of all of California.
Well, and this is what's fucked is that, I mean, it's all fucked, but so they're apparently allowed 2.3 million gallons a year, which also, fuck you. But apparently Nestle has just blown right past that. And last year, for instance, it drew 58 million gallons of water.
Oh my God.
I don't know what 58 million divided by 2.3 is, but a lot, like a lot.
Shit ton.
A shit ton.
Let's just go with 30.
So, so Nestle has siphoned many more times water than it's like, again, like the Dakota Access Pipeline. It's like you don't actually have a permit. Like, you're doing this illegally, and Nestle is doing this illegally, and everyone's like, I don't fucking care. Well, although this jaywalker over here, we've got to do something about the blight of jaywalking in the society.
Well, you were literally arrested for bicycling while intoxicated.
I was.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're
I'm
focused
the
on.
scourge of society.
As I've said in my many rants on policing, the police do not police real crimes, such as stealing all of the water of California. They police non-crimes, like this person's walking across the street at an odd hour. And that is their job. You know, their job is not to keep these corporations in check as they abuse our world and abuse our workers and our people and everything else. Their job is to just go after protect the class structure and make sure most black people are in prison.
Yeah. That's a good little Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so water officials basically sent a letter to Nestle, like a very nicely worded letter. Like, it's not like, holy shit, what the fuck is the matter with you
Nestle
people?
probably funds all their politicians.
And it basically said that we have to. Oh yeah, it says it's here. Quote: "It's important that we use our authority to protect the municipal water supply and the environment." What the fuck does that mean? And by the way,
I'm sure Nestle sent a letter back that said nothing is more important to us than protecting the environment.
Well, right. It's like Coca-Cola had that ad like a couple of years ago
Yeah.
that just talked about how they're protecting water.
Because they said water's our number one ingredient. No one protects it better than us. And I'm like, your business model is taking water and turning it into literally toxic brown sludge. That is yes, it's the number one ingredient.
Right.
You magically turn it into something that can dissolve human teeth. You fucking ass fucks.
So basically, so this is there's a draft order, which I'm not really sure what exactly like that means in terms of legalese. If we could have a lawyer call in, let us know. But the draft order basically says that that there's going to be a hearing, and a spokesperson said that the assessment that it only had the right to draw 7.26 acre feet of water per year was erroneous. This comes from Nestle, so they're fighting it. They're fighting this draft order. And at the same time, the company is battling folks in Oregon, Pennsylvania, Maine, and Michigan. And they are also, as you pointed out, Lee, they are leveraging vast lobbying funds.
No.
To ensure that these officials get off their fucking ass. So an activist, Amanda Fry, commented on this issue, saying, quote, "The forests that Nestle are draining, there are forests supported by every U.S. taxpayer." And she has been, and her group have given documents to state officials that show the research going back at least a century, which I don't even know how that's some badass investigation there, showing that Nestle does not have the right to the water that it's using. So again, this is just another one of those moments where we have to give mad props to the groups of people that are really, really doing a tremendous job of fighting this, and working to combat the destruction that these corporations are manifesting.
I love how the federal government has violated every fucking 100, 200, 300, 400-year-old deal they've made with the indigenous in this country. Yet for some odd reason, this deal with Nestle from 1812 saying they get all of the water for a buffalo penny, that's unbreakable. Can't change that.
Right, and also the state officials have said that it's difficult to challenge Nestle's rights to the water established before 1914.
Why is it difficult?
Right.
It should be a no-brainer.
I know. And it's like, why? Okay, first of all, that's fucking stupid. Second of all, it's common sense. California is experiencing a drought, like an excessive drought. These aquifers, these places that Nestle is siphoning water are water supply for hundreds of thousands of people. You shouldn't have to even look back at 1914 or before. You should just be able to look at right now and be like, this is fucked. We're stopping it right here.
Well, and for anything that was signed back in a time when, a while ago, and a corporation is upset that deal was signed, let's say 25, 50, 100 years ago, they find ways around it, like with mineral rights, which we were discussing, which you cover in your movie. Like, they were like, hey, we don't like that this landowner has had this land since, 1810. And so we're going to come up with something called mineral rights, where we stick a pipe in from another property and steal your, gas and frack underneath you and everything else. And so they buy the land out from under them, and yet for some odd reason we can't get around. I mean, not for some odd reason. It's because these fucking most of these politicians are bought off by Nestle. Probably the fact that you're seeing any fight at all from these politicians is because Nestle has failed to fund enough of these politicians, and they're probably getting on that right now, making sure they're funding more politicians. I want to squeeze in. I know we're going to wrap up here in a second. I want to squeeze in this last little bit about our friend Bill Gates, who has been trending on Twitter recently because sadly he and Melinda Gates are getting divorced.
Oh no!
I know.
Sad face.
Sad faces.
Wait, who's gonna get the 12 houses on the Eastern Seaboard?
I assume those will be donated to other rich people. So apparently, hoarding the world's vaccines was tough on their marriage. It's tough to do that together as a team. But go ahead. We've got. That's not why I bring it up. We've got other news on Bill Gates.
Yeah, I didn't even actually know that. So, quick question. I mean, in terms of the charity industrial complex, is it still going to be called the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? Because I feel like this is a very important thing.
Actually, judging by his new girlfriend, they're going to name it the Bill Gates and Tiffany Foundation.
And if you don't say it like that, you have to give $10 extra. So, there you go. But this is just I saw this. I saw this shared, and it's just one of those moments where you realize, like, how fucking top-heavy this system is, how atrociously unequal our society has become. Bill Gates could pay the entire $25 billion needed to vaccinate low and middle income countries globally. And he would still be $31.5 billion richer than he was before the pandemic.
Did you catch that, folks? Before the pandemic. Meaning
he got $56 billion richer across the course of the pandemic.
During the pandemic, he's gained $56 billion. So if he were to just donate enough to cover all of the vaccines for poor countries, he'd still be $31 billion richer than before the pandemic. I mean, it's so fucking incredible, these numbers. And, this goes with a story I covered on Redacted tonight about how the U.S. is, weaponizing this vaccine to make sure that poor countries don't have it. We're not, and meaning also the technology, so that they could make it themselves. We're hiding that, and Bill Gates I think we covered this story before, was pivotal in making sure the AstraZeneca one was not open patent, open source, because initially they had said they were going to give it to poor countries, the technology.
Yep, and then Bill Gates paid them a visit, and that was dead in the water. I mean, I feel like can we just like look back in time and the polio vaccine, when Salk was like, no, I don't want to copyright it. Like, people should just be able to access this. Right. And I'm just curious, when was the last time anyone fucking got polio? I don't think I've seen much polio running around. Like, well, that's an ironic way of putting it. I haven't seen much polio going around.
And he's held up as like a hero, whereas you don't see a lot of people like holding up some scientist who was like, this guy invented something and, greedily managed to make billions from it. What a great guy.
Although we pedestal Edison. But yeah, I mean, like...
we pedestal Bill Gates and Bezos and
right.
all these sociopaths.
So, I mean, just like, this is the idea that we can somehow cocoon, and of course, like, I'm sure Bill Gates, he can cocoon himself, but just because, like, if we get to the point where the U.S. is vaccinated, great, but that doesn't address the fact that there are millions of people worldwide who don't have access to the vaccine, which means that this pandemic is not over. Like, you have to ensure that people everywhere on the planet, because, I don't know if you noticed, it's a global world, like, globalization, it's a thing.
That's why we gotta build a wall.
But germs can
jump over the wall?
Shit. They've got ladders.
God damn it. Are they like lice?
They're like bed bugs. They get everywhere.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it'd be for our own benefit, but the truth is they're seeing the billions on the wall, the writing of billions on the wall. They know that there will be booster shots even after this pandemic is over, and even though they've given out this first line of, first run of vaccines for free, they plan on making billions going forward. And so that's really where this is coming from. Yeah,
and even though we, the people, paid for the R&D on the vaccines. Yeah.
All right. Well, we didn't end with the good news, but we started with the good news.
There was some good news peppered.
We're going to wrap up here. Again, the album is Pay What You Like, starting at $6. It's called No Solo, and it's at artkillingapathy.com. That's artkillingapathy.com. I don't know if you want to describe what style is the music? How would you describe it?
I would describe the music as singer-songwriter, and the spoken word pieces are, the typical fare, the political spoken word, and then there's some sound design.
Call them typical.
The sound. There's some sound design along with it.
Yeah. So that's at artkillingapathy.com. Again, for LiberaPay members, liberapay.com/LeeCamp. If you're signed up at $3 or above, email commoncensored at protonmail.com to collect your free digital download of the album. We'll be doing a live stream, 8 p.m. Eastern, Sunday night at youtube.com/momentofclarity or rockfin.com/LeeCamp.
It's Mother's Day. Bring your mom along.
Bring your mom to the live stream. Oh, my God. We should do Bring Your Mom to the Live Stream Day.
Dude, we totally should.
There'd be a lot of horrified moms. Do they have to use such language?
I guess it depends on the mom.
Although I bet we have some fucking badass moms that
Yeah,
are
we do.
listening to us right now. So
Totally. Fuck yeah.
um
If you're a mom, bring your kids.
yeah. Bring everybody. Just bring everybody. bring your fucking maintenance guy when you need your sink repaired. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We will see you next week.
No.
Keep fighting.
I see.
Eleanor was boycotting the goodbye.
I was boycotting the
'cause
goodbye.
She loves you guys so much.
I do. I want to hang out longer, but alas, I have to pee. So until next time, y'all, act out.
Keep fighting.